Hello buddies, welcome back to the class. This is Chandrika and today we are going to discuss about the class Sexual Reproduction in the Flowering Plants. This is the lecture number 3. Let's get started. So today we are going to start about the concept that is agents of pollination. Yesterday and day before yesterday, that is from last 2 lectures we covered 2 main topics. So this is the one of the third main topic I can say, that is agents of pollination. To do pollination, whatever the agents are there, that one we are going to discuss here. Pollination means the transfer of pollen grain from anther to the stigma. So here, to do such kind of work, there is a need of agents. Here there is mainly 2 types of agents, abiotic and biotic. Under again abiotic agents, wind and then water, they are playing a much more important role. And when we talk about the biotic agents, insects, birds, primates, and then arboreal rodents and reptiles, these all are the members which are helpful for the pollination, and they are act like agents for the perfect pollination. So they comes under biotic, and wind and then water comes under abiotic. Let me show you picture. See, this is the picture where it is showing the pollination by wind, that is called as anemophily, and water pollination is said to be hydrophily. Hydro in the sense water, anemo in the sense wind. So here what happens, in this picture only you will be having a clear-cut idea about that. Wind pollinated flowers usually, or else anthers I can say, pollen grains I can say, they will be very light and then dust like pollen grains they will be, and they will travel through the wind and they expose to the another flowers. They are very light and then they are the non-sticky, well exposed, versatile anther. Versatile means they are like they are very comfortable. Okay, next they are large feathery stigma. Example, grass corn. So this is the stigma and this is the anther. Pollen grains will travel and then they will expose to the anther, or else stigma I can say, not anther, stigma. So this feathery stigma easily traps airborne pollen grains. Whatever the airborne in the air, whatever the pollen grains will be there, no, these feathery stigma will catch up them. When we talk about the water pollination, best example you can say is the Vallisneria. I will explain very clearly about the Vallisneria pollination. Just a brief explanation I am going to give here. Flowers reach the surface by a long stalk. See, this is the flower, female flower. It will reach the surface of the water. Okay, then what happens, male flowers, pollen released at the surface, reach female flowers. Here what happens, the male flower will release the pollen grains and then they will flow towards the female flower to do pollination. Next, one more example is that is the Zostera. Which one is best example for marine seagrass? Pollen grains are long and then ribbon like. Here the pollen grains are very long. Pollination occurs underwater. This is the example for underwater pollination, and this is example for above the water surface. Okay, and one more. See, these are the example for biotic agents. Biotic agents of pollination. These all are according to NCERT only. Insect pollination. Insect pollination is called as entomophily, whereas honeybee and then butterflies we can say. Next, birds. Okay, birds, ornithophily. Birds, if the pollination is going to takes place with the help of birds, then it is called as ornithophily. If the pollination is going to take place with the help of insects, then it is called as entomophily. Birds example is sunbird and then hummingbird. This is the sunbird and this one is the hummingbird. Next, bees, the most dominant biotic pollinator, that is the bee. Butterflies and then moths attract by the scent. Actually bees and then moths were attracted by the scent of the flower and then color. That's what color, flower will be always very much attractive color, you know, isn't? That's what. Next, beetles and then flies, that is specific types. Amorphophallus flower, we can say Amorphophallus flower is the biggest flower in the world, we can say. This is the Amorphophallus flower. This is the cross species interaction, we can also say. Amorphophallus, which is 6 feet tall flower, provides a safe place to lay the eggs for this moth, and due to that what happens, this flower is going to be pollinated. Whatever the pollen grains are present on the moth's surface, like that what happens, there will be a cross species interaction. Cross species, why it is called as so? Because this is a totally different species moth, and then this one is totally different species, but they are compatible with them, because moth is having a safe place to lay the egg, and then whereas Amorphophallus flower is pollinating by the pollen grains which are present on the surface of this moth. Okay, next, if the pollination takes place by the mammals, then it is called as zoophily. Example, bats, you can say, and some of the primates, rodents. These are the rodents, and this one is the primate. Arboreal mammals like primates, rodents, and even some reptiles. Bats, important for the large night blooming flower. It is important for what? Night blooming flower. Which one? Bat. Here it is, bat. And yucca plant, you can say, we will explain about this also in deep. This is yucca plant, and then this one is the pronub moth. These two's life cycle is incomplete without one another. Means moth's life cycle is depend upon the yucca plant, and then yucca plant's life cycle is depend upon the moth, that is pronub moth. We will be discussing this one later on in the next slides. First we will talk about the abiotic agents. So here the abiotic agent, first one we are going to talk about the winds. Pollination by wind is called as anemophily. Just now I said. More common abiotic agent, we can say, wind pollinated flowers have a single ovule in each ovary and numerous flowers packed into the inflorescence. Usually what happens, here you can see there will be a single flower having only one ovule. Yes, of course, but the flowers are going to packed into the inflorescence in the form of many flowers in a bunched form, so that they can the possibility of fertilization must be there. That's what. Okay, example for that is corncob tassel or the stigma and then style, which wave in the wind to trap the pollen grains. Corncob of the tassel, let me show you here. See this one, ears of the corn. Whenever you are going to eat the corn, no, you will see the golden like thread like structure will be there. Yes, that one is nothing but the stalk and then stigma of the flower. Okay, whenever this corn was a flower, these are going to be waving out so that they can trap the pollen grains which are released by the tassel. So this is the best example for what? Wind pollination, that is anemophily, corncob tassel. Okay, next, wind pollination is quite common in the grasses. Flowers produce large amount of the pollen, and then pollen grains are light and then non-exposed stamen. Easy dispersal of the pollen into the wind current. They will be very lightweight, and the large feathery stigma to trap airborne pollen grains they will be having. So what you should be keep in mind, wind pollinating pollen grains will be very lightweight. Okay, and then stigma will be feathery and then it will be large, so that it can trap the pollen grains. Next, water. This is very important for your theory point of view and even for the MCQ point of view. Pollination by water is called as what? Hydrophily. Hydro means water and then phily means that study, you can say hydrophily. Pollination by water is said to be hydrophily. It is quite rare. It is limited to about 30 genera, mostly monocotyledons. It is very usually you can see in monocots. Best example for that is Vallisneria, Hydrilla and then Zostera. Among the Vallisneria, Hydrilla and then Zostera, these two are freshwater and then Zostera is marine water. So keep in mind, in this example only we already got many of the questions. Vallisneria and Hydrilla are the freshwater, don't get confused there, and then Zostera is the marine seagrass. But in the lower plants, water is a regular mode of the transport for the male gametes. Distribution of some bryophytes and pteridophytes is limited because they need water for the transport of the male gametes and then fertilization. So, due to the distribution of the male gametes in the bryophytes and then pteridophytes, okay, none like the angiosperms, they are depend upon the water for the transport of the male gametes and then fertilization. Their distribution is very limited. Because of what? Because of the water pollination condition. So this is the example of Vallisneria, and this is the Hydrilla, and this one is the Zostera. In Vallisneria, what happens? The female flower reaches the surface. The female flower reaches the surface of the water. This is the long stalk, you can see, and then male flowers, pollen grains are released on the surface of the water. This is the male flowers. Okay, this is the male flowers. Let me zoom. See, these are the boat shaped male flowers. In this flower, what happens? There will be pollen grains. So through the water current, what happens? These pollen grains are going to be reach the flower, which is already exposing to the surface of the water. This is very unique, what I can say, unique technique. Okay, see, their male flowers are submerged, okay, but they are released in the water and then they float towards the surface, and then they are going to be reached to the female flower. By that, what happens? Female flower is going to be exposed to the surface of the water. So this is the water level. The surface of the water, they are carried by a water current and reach to the female flowers. In sea grasses, female remain submerged in water. Pollen grains are long and then ribbon like. They are carried inside the water and then reach the stigma. In sea grasses, what happens? Female remains submerged in the water, whereas pollen grains are long and then ribbon like structures. So that pollination is going to be happen in the submerged areas or else submerged plants. The pollen grains of the most water pollinated species have a mucilaginous covering to protect from the wetting. So when we talk about the water pollinating species, their pollen grains are mucilaginous, means it will be a sheath. Okay, for what? For protecting from the wetting. Not all aquatic plants use hydrophily. See, example is given. This is the hyacinth and this is the water lily. Being a water plant, means being aquatic plants, they go for entomophily. See, here insect is there, no? Isn't it? So even though they are present in the water or else on the surface of the water, they are not going to be pollinated by the water. They are pollinated by the insect. That's what they are. Entomophily or else anemophily, you can also say. Wind and water pollinated flowers are not very colorful and do not produce nectars, but whereas especially biotic pollinators, flowers will be very colorful and then they produce nectars. Now let's talk about the biotic one. This is all about the abiotic. This is from the biotic. So animals. Biotic agents, best examples animals. Used majority of the flowering plants. Example bees, butterflies, flies, beetles, wasps, ants, moths, birds. In the birds, especially sunbird and then hummingbird, and then bats, that is primates, that is lemur, arboreal tree dwelling rodents, reptiles, ginkgo lizards, and then garden lizards, etc. Those all examples I have given in here in the one picture. See, this is the hummingbird, butterfly, bees, this is also butterfly, this is the beetle, see, and this one is the bat. So these all are the examples for what? Biotic agents. Pollination by insects, that is entomophily, particularly bees, is more common. Entomophily means it is pollination by the insects. flowers of the animal pollinating plants are specifically adapted for a particular species of the animals. Means what happens, specific plants will be specifically adapted for the specific animals, special species of the animals. So when we talk about the features of the insect pollinating flowers, they are very large usually, and they are very colorful, fragrant and rich in nectars. Flowers of the insect pollinating flowers will be very large so that they can attract the insects, and they will be very colorful for the attraction only, and fragrant. By the fragrant also insects will be attracting, and then they are very rich in the nectar. Nectar and pollen grains are the floral rewards for the pollination. Please keep in mind, you may expect one more question, what are the floral rewards from the flower to the agent? See, whenever the agent is visiting to the flower, they will get a reward for the pollination. What they get reward, especially in the insect pollination, they get a nectar and then pollen grain. Small flowers form inflorescence. Small flowers form inflorescence to make them visible. If the very small flowers are, large flower means there is no problem. If the flowers are very small, they form inflorescence, means bunch of flowers, so that they can attract by the insects. The flowers pollinated by the flies and then beetles secrete foul odor to attract these animals. Especially in the flies and then beetles, they foul odor to attract them. What? Flies and then beetles. Okay. Next, the pollen grains are generally sticky. Usually, insect pollinating flowers are pollen grains are sticky in nature. But when we talk about the wind pollinated, they are very light and then non-sticky. But here they are the sticky. When the animal come in contact with the anther, the stigma and the stigma, its body gets pollen grains. Means what? Whenever the animal is contacted with the flower or else anther, I can say, they will be that overall body of the insect will be dusted with the pollen grains, and then whenever it is going to be exposed to the stigma, there will be occurrence of the pollination, like that. When it comes in contact with the stigma, it results in the pollination, isn't it? Same like that. Next, some plants provide safe places and as a floral rewards to lay the eggs. See here, I said nectars and pollen grains are the floral rewards, but in few plants what happens, they provide safety as a floral reward. Best example for that is Amorphophallus. Just now I said that is, it is the tallest flower of the world, I can say, because it is 6 feet in height. This is the Amorphophallus. And when we talk about the yucca moth, this is the yucca plant. A moth species, this is the moth, okay, pronobe moth. This pronobe moth and then plant, these two life cycle won't complete without any of the one among them. Means yucca plant cannot complete their life cycle without this moth, and this moth cannot complete its life cycle without this plant. How come? Because this moth deposits its egg in the locules of the ovary. Locules, that is the chamber, isn't it? Inside that chamber, this moth is going to be deposit its egg, and the larvae comes out of the eggs as a seeds, start developing. What is the help of this moth is going to do to the plant? Because of the laying of the egg, what happens, this moth will be having many of the number of the pollen grains on its body, and it is going to be pollinating this flower, and after laying egg it is going to be come out, and whenever the plant is fertilized, and then that is going to be giving fruit and then seed. From that fruit the larvae will come out. Whose larvae? That moth's larvae. Many insects consume pollen and the nectar without bringing about pollination. They are said to be what? Pollen nectar robbers. They are called as pollen robbers or else nectar robbers. Few of the insects, what? They are going to consume the pollen grain rather than doing what? Pollination. They are said to be what? Pollen robbers. Here few of the examples, pictures are there which will be called as pollen robbers. See how many pollen grains are there. This is the insects. Whatever the yellow color spots, yellow color dots you are going to see now, these all are pollen grains, tiny pollen grains. Next, outbreeding device. You can expect for a 5 marks question in the theory session and also for 3 marks question. Here, outbreeding device. Usually what happens for plants avoid self-pollination, so they perform like many of the things are there to avoid that one. First one among that avoiding synchrony. Here pollen is released before the stigma becomes receptive, or stigma becomes receptive before the release of the pollen. Means what? Pollen is either pollen released early or else stigma becomes receptive early. So by that what happens? Self pollination is going to be avoided. Why they are going to be avoiding the self pollination? Because whenever again and again self pollination will be there, then inbreeding depression will be there. That's what, to avoid that one, there will be a synchronization, avoiding synchronization, those all things will be there. Second one, arrangement of anther and stigma at a different position. If the anther and then stigma are at the different position, there will be a very less chances of the pollination. So like that. Next, self incompatibility. It is genetic mechanism to prevent self pollen, that is from the same flower to the other flower of the same plant, geitonogamy, from fertilization by inhibiting pollen germination or else pollen tube growth in the pistil. In such kind, what happens, for example I can give you, let me take a pen. Just imagine this is the stigma and then style and then ovary of a flower, and this is the anther. If pollen grain is dropped on the stigma of the same flower of the same stigma, then it is what? Of the same genetic mechanism. How come they are going to be rejecting? They are going to be rejecting them by preventing self-pollination. They won't allow the pollen grain to form the pollen tube itself. So by that what happens? That is said to be a self-incompatibility. The stigma will reject that pollen grain. Next, by producing unisexual flowers. Usually what happens? If the male and then female flowers are present on a same plant, that is monoecious. Best example you can say castor and then maize. They prevent autogamy but not the geitonogamy. Monoecious. Okay. Male and female flowers are present on a same plant. Dioecious, both the plant will be different. Best example papaya you can say. Male and then female flowers will be on a different plants. So that what happens? They must go for what? Cross pollination. Next, how come there will be a interaction between the pollen and then pistil? Pollen-Pistil Interaction. See here, this is the stigma and this one is the style, and this is the pollen tube you can see, and this one is ovary actually. Pollen-Pistil Interaction, it is the process in which pistil recognizes compatible or incompatible pollen through the chemical components produced by them. If the pollen is compatible, that is the right type, if the pollen is compatible, which one is the right type, the pistil accepts it and promotes for the post-pollination events. If pollen is of right type, if see here S1 is right type, okay, this is provided for the pollen tube formation, but this one is not. S3 is given permission but S1 is not, because that one is not compatible one. Next, pollen grain germinate on the stigma to produce pollen tube through one of the germ pore. We discussed about this, isn't it? Usually pollen grain is having germ pores, that where the sporopollenin is absent, isn't it? Whatever the content is there inside there will be a germinal cell, and then there will be a vegetative cell. Whatever the content will be there, those all content will come out in the form of what? Pollen tube. The content of the pollen grain move into the pollen tube. Pollen tube grows through the tissues of the stigma and style and reaches the ovary. Like this, let me show. See, after the acceptance of the stigma by the chemical reaction, see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 pollen grains are there, but only one is formed the pollen tube. Why? Because that stigma is accepted that one, and then it is rejected the remaining one. This formed pollen tube will carry the vegetative cell and then generative cell. And see here, this one overall thing is ovule, and this one is the ovule. Here there will be a micropyle end. So after the exposing in the style, it will come in contact with the micropyle, and it will emerges with the help of micropyle opening. There will be opening in the micropyle in the ovule. We discussed about that. So this is the micropyle opening. Next, if the pollen is of wrong type, the pistil rejects the pollen grain. See here, if the pollen is wrong type, it going to reject. If it is right type, it is going to be allowed to the formation of the pollen tube. Pollen grains are shed at a two-celled condition, that is, one is vegetative cell and then one more is generative cell. In such plants, generative cell divides and forms the two male gametes during the growth of the pollen tube in the stigma. In the stigma, what happens? There will be a formation of one more, formation of two male gametes will be there. If the pollen grain is shed at a two-celled condition. If in few plants, what happens? It will shed in three-celled stage. Where three-celled stage? Where the pollen tube carries two male gametes from the beginning itself. Okay, if it is having only two-celled stage, one will be vegetative cell, one will be generative cell. Okay, now by this what happens? If just imagine this pollen grain is here. Okay, after exposing here, what happens? This generative cell will divide to form a two male gametes, one and then two. This is for the two-celled condition. If pollen grain shed at three-celled stage, already generative cell will be divided in the form of two male gametes, and then vegetative cell will be there. Pollen tube after reaching the ovary. See here, pollen tube after reaching the ovary. This is the ovary, and inside that there will be ovules. Pollen tube after reaching the ovules, they will expose to the opening called, which is the micropyle. Okay, the ovule through the micropyle, and then enter one of the synergids through the filiform apparatus. We discussed about this. Okay, this is the micropyle end, and this is the filiform apparatus, which will be a finger-like structure. They guide to the pollen tube to move the male gametes inside the one of the synergids. There will be two synergids, isn't it? So among these two synergids, only one of the synergid is going to be getting this one. Okay, and here there will be a egg cell. The plant breeders in manipulating pollen-pistil interaction, even in incompatible pollination, to get a desired hybrid. So in this stage, in this condition, what happens? Plant breeders can manipulate pollen-pistil interaction so that they can get a very desired, means whatever they want, such kind of characters, no, they can manipulate them. So now let's talk about artificial hybridization. This is a process where crop improvement program in which desired pollen grains are used for what? Pollination. And this is achieved by what? Emasculation and then bagging. These are the two big steps, I can say. What actually hybridization and then artificial hybridization? Whatever hybridization means, we are like man-made characters, I can say, in very easy manner. If I say man-made character, for example, let me Let me take example of chili. Okay, there are two plants of chili. Imagine this is one of the plant and then this one is one of the plant, and this flower is there. Okay, and this one is also one of the flower. See, this plant is producing very spicy chili, spice one, and this plant produce green color. Okay, color is very green, dark green, but spiciness is very low, no spiciness at all. But this plant produce, this flower produced fruit will be having very spicy chilies, but it is not green in color, means the light color of the that fruit is very light. Will you take, if you are a market, in just think about it, in markets, if you go in the market, will you take that chili which is very dull light green in color? No, obviously you go with the dark green in color, isn't it? But it is not spicy. In such condition, what plant breeders will do, whatever the spiciness is responsible for that, no, that this pollen grain it can be introduced to this kind of flower, so that what happens, there will be a fertilization in which there will be both kind of gene expression will be there. This one is called as artificial hybridization. In that there will be two stages, that is emasculation and bagging is the very important steps we can say. Emasculation means removal of anther from the bisexual flower bud of the female parent before anther dehiscence. See here, they are removing the anthers. Okay, they are what? Removing the anthers. See here, by the help of forceps we are removing anthers before it is going to be dehiscent. Why? Because it is bisexual flower. If you remove, this stigma is not at all exposed to the anther. This removal of the anther is said to be what? Emasculation. Next what happens? There will be a bagging. After removing, this stigma is exposed now. So the exposed stigma can expose to other unwanted pollen grains. So that what happens? We are going to bag them. Okay, here emasculated flowers are covered with a suitable bag made up of butter paper. It is going to be covered with the butter paper. This is the butter paper, to prevent contamination of its stigma with the unwanted pollen. So contamination will be not there. When the stigma attains receptivity, means when stigma is going to be mature, the desired whatever the pollen grain we want, which one is collected from the anthers of the male parent are dusted on the stigma. So whatever the desired charactered pollen grain were collected, no, that one is dusted on here. Then the flowers are rebagged. Again it is going to be rebagged and allowed for the development of the fruit. So like that we can desired characters can be formed by the artificial hybridization. For unisexual flower what happen, there is no need of emasculation, because already the female flower and the male flowers will be different. So female flowers are directly bagged there before female is going to be receptive. So pollination is carried out using the desired pollen and then flower rebagging. Bagging process will be there, but emasculation flower is not there, will be there in the unisexual flowers. So this is the end of the today's lecture, that is lecture number 3. Thank you one and all. For the next class we will be discussing with the lecture number 4. Thank you.